Hey guys, welcome to RT Infrastructure Micro Lessons, where we cover short lessons about networking, network automation, and AWS. So today's micro lesson is going to be about port security, and I definitely wanted to cover a topic on that because I think it's important. And as the name suggests, port security is just protection for the port on the switch by controlling which devices are allowed to connect to it. It does that by using MAC addresses. And essentially, just to give you the rundown how it works, essentially you configure the maximum allowed MAC address that allowed to connect to that port. Once you do that, you can connect your device, and that device is the maximum allowed. So, say for instance, if I connect one device to it, that's the maximum allowed MAC addresses on that one specific port. Um, so obviously you're like, hey, so duh, you plugged in a computer. Of course, it would just be one MAC address. It wouldn't be multiple MAC addresses. Well, that's not always the case all the time. There are different devices that have multiple MAC addresses, and one that you'll find a lot that will happen in a corporate setting is you'll have a PoE device such as like a phone. You'll have your phone connected to your computer, and then your phone is also connected to the switch. And I think I remember saying something about that in our previous lessons where you'll definitely see a lot of that in the corporate settings, and that actually has two MAC addresses, not just one. So if I only allow one maximum MAC addresses, and I have one connection to the switch, but one of it's my phone, one is my computer, then that's going to violate that port security. So so when that happens, there's actually three different modes that you can actually configure to tell the switch how to handle it. One of it is protect, restrict, and then shut down. So protect kind of just drops packets, it just drops the traffic, and essentially that's it. It doesn't log the event, it doesn't increment the violation counter, it doesn't even disable the port, it just drops packet. You'll see it up and you'll just sit here and wonder why it keeps dropping packets, which I don't particularly like that mode. Then there's restrict, which it drops packet. It also logs the event and increment the violation counter, but it doesn't disable the port. And that one's better than protect, in my opinion. But I think the best one, which is the default value, which is shut down, and that one will drop traffic, log the event, increment the violation counter, and shut down the port. It puts the port in error disable mode. And I think that's the best because it's easy to figure that out. You'll see, oh, look, it says port security was tripped. Go to the interface. Hey, look, it says it's an error disabled. Easy peasy. You can see all of it happening, and you don't have to sit here and try to figure out or troubleshoot anything like that. Just because they kind of lay it out for you. So we're gonna get into it and kind of go through this. Uh, so let's go ahead and get into our interface here. So interface GI 1/0/1. So you do have to go inside your port interface to configure this. So if you got multiple ports, you can use the interface range mode and then type in the range of uh, access ports you would like to configure. Of course, you do not want to use port security on a trunk port because you're going to have a lot of MAC addresses and things go over that trunk port. So you definitely don't want to use it for that. But going into it, so first thing first, we have to make sure that my interface is in access mode. So switch port mode access. And then you want to go ahead and enable switch port security. So switch port port security, and then go ahead and just click enter. Once you do that, then you can go ahead and kind of configure your maximum allowed uh, MAC addresses over that port. So we're going to go ahead and do switch port security maximum. And for this demonstration, I'm just going to do one, and then switch port. And here's a few optional. So we have switch port security, MAC address, and if you want to just go ahead and so we'll do a question mark here. So you notice that we have two options for this. One is we can statically assign a MAC address to this port. So if I put a maximum of one, if I know what the MAC address for that one computer or one device that's being connected to this port, I can just enter it in there and that will statically be assigned and we don't have to worry about it, being any other devices on there. Or we can do sticky. This kind of helps you dynamically find the MAC address. So I wouldn't have to statically assign it. I can just go ahead and, plug it in and the first MAC address that comes up on that port is the one that is always going to use um, for that maximum one. So that meaning even if I take this out and put another computer in there, which has another MAC address, it's not going to allow that over that interface because I have sticky configured on there. So same thing with the statically assigned. If I take it out, if I put another computer in, different MAC address, it's not going to allow it over that port because I statically assign it to only allow that MAC address in there. So that's an additional command that if you want to put in there, you can. Typically, I leave that blank just because if someone does want to take it out and put something in there, they can still do that. Another optional command here is switch port security violation. If I can spell violation, and we'll do a question mark. And we have the three mode that I mentioned before. We have protect, restrict, and shut down. Now, by default, if I just click enter as is, it's going to go in shutdown mode. If I want to use protect or restrict, I would actually have to specify that. However, like I mentioned, you're probably going to use shutdown more than anything. So I'm just going to leave it for shutdown. And of course, I have to type the whole thing out. So, however, if you don't use this command at all, by default, it's just going to be shut down. So let's go ahead because I want to actually show what happened. So right now we have our switch configured for one maximum uh, MAC address. And right now I have a computer connected to a phone, and then I'm going to actually connect the phone to the switch. And I just want to show you what happens when it violates that um, that security, that port security. So let's go ahead and do that. You're going to see us come up back up online, and then we're going to wait for it to show us here what's going on. So all right. So as you can see, it went up and down a little bit when it was trying to boot up, and finally at the end here, we can see our log here where we actually violated the port security and you can notice that it put it in error disabled state because of that, and it actually tells us the reason. This is due to the MAC address D353. So it found another one on that port, and that's exactly why I love shutdown because it shows me that. And we do a do show int status. You can also see that it's also in error disabled. So that's the very reason why I love shutdown here. And the kind of remedy this issue, of course, you're going to have to disable or get rid of the device that's giving you a multiple MAC address, or you can up the maximum MAC address. I can put two instead of one. And to kind of get rid of this error disable state, you first have to unplug the device that's giving you that error on the port. And then if you're already in the interface, you can do a shutdown and then no shut. And then we do our do show in status. You can see that it's back to no not connected, and the error disable state is gone. So at that point, you would come in here, you would say, okay, well, I need both my phones and computer connected to this one port, so I'll just up the MAC address, or you'll say, hey, we'll separate it and plug it into a different port. Obviously, either one of those is going to work, but that's it for port security, and I will see you guys on the next one.